But let's, of course, start with this big story from the United States, where the famous White House fallout with Zelensky, a reconciliation in Vatican, and then a phone call with Putin. The American president is pushing to broker a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. So as Trump makes strides to fulfill his poll promise to bring an end to the war in Ukraine, the Americans have opined on his Ukraine policy so far. In a poll that was conducted by the Harvard Caps Harris, 62% of the voters want the United States to continue to supply weaponry to Ukraine and to impose sanctions on Russia. On security guarantees to Kiev, 64% of the voters believe that Ukraine should receive direct security guarantees from the United States, and this is across party lines, with support from 71%, the Democrats 59%, and Republicans at 56%. Now, 59% of the voters believe that Trump has not been tough enough when dealing with Putin and the Russians. Now, 66% of the voters think that the Russian President Vladimir Putin is in fact playing games and is stalling the United States and the West, while 62% of the voters believe that Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky genuinely wants to end the war. Voters, however, are split 50-50 on whether they are satisfied with Trump's negotiations between Ukraine and Russia, with 79% of the Republicans satisfied and 76% of the Democrats and 55% of the independents saying that they're not satisfied. So a total of 1,903 respondents from across the party lines took part in this poll. Now, during his run for the presidency, Donald Trump had repeatedly promised that he can end the Ukraine war within 24 hours of taking office. Last week, he had said that it would not be resolved until he and the Russian President Vladimir Putin can get together and sort things out in person. And it remains to be seen whether a phone call with the Russian President Vladimir Putin can pave the way for peace in Ukraine. All right, now to give us more perspective on this, we are joined by Dr. Charles Kupchan, who's a senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations, and he's joining us live on this broadcast from Washington, D.C. Dr. Kupchan, thank you very much indeed, sir, for joining us here on this broadcast. Now, let me actually start off by asking this. You know, all through his days of campaigning, Donald Trump had exhibited a lot of optimism, repeatedly saying that he can end the Russia-Ukraine war within a day of assuming his presidency. Now, in the phone call that he's had with Vladimir Putin, in your assessment, how much closer are we of Donald Trump being able to strike a deal with Vladimir Putin?
I don't think we're any closer at all. This phone call did not go particularly well. It looks as if Trump is now walking away from playing the role of mediator, as he said he would do over the last few weeks. And he seems to be saying, listen, I've done my best. I'm going to throw it over to the Ukrainians and to the Russians to see if they can make some progress on their own. But clearly, Trump underestimated Putin. I think he thought that he would be able to get on the phone, use his relationship with Putin to convince the Russian leader to end the war. And he's finding out that Putin continues to harbor quite ambitious maximalist war aims when it comes to his aggression against Ukraine.
Now, Dr. Kupchan, and also, how do you think the Russian approach to this war has actually changed, especially when you look at the Russian people themselves, where, according to a recent poll, it does appear that the Russians do not look at Ukraine or the United States as their biggest adversaries. That position has now been taken over by nations such as France, the United Kingdom, and Germany. Why do you think the Russian attitude towards the United States of America has changed with Donald Trump at the White House?
Well, I think it's obvious that Trump has reached out to Putin. Trump has talked to him on 3 occasions. Trump has sent his Secretary of State and other key advisors to meet with the Russians in various locations. And so I think the Russians now feel that they have in the White House someone who is less hostile, less confrontational than Joe Biden, the previous president. And now you have the British, the French, the Poles, the Europeans, who are really sort of standing on the barricade and saying, no, we need to continue supporting Ukraine for as long as it takes. What Trump does now, whether he increases sanctions against Russia and continues military support to Ukraine, we just don't know. But clearly there is more uncertainty and more fluidity to Washington's policy than there has been during the previous presidency.
All right, we'll have to leave there. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Kupchan, for joining us with that perspective there.